After slaying the Elden Beast, becoming Elden Lord, and over 100 hours of playtime, I have decided to take my talents to the realm of Shadow on the pursuit for Miquella. Shadow of the Erdtree is the massive DLC expansion of the 2022 Game of the Year, Elden Ring. And this DLC has received so much praise itself that it was actually a Game of the Year finalist in 2024 as a DLC. And while I'm not necessarily one to always jump into a DLC after completing a game, this seemed like an obvious exception to that. This is part one of my Shadow of the Erdtree playthrough. I'm not quite sure how many parts they're going to be. We'll just have to see how many parts it takes for me to get to the end of the game. But if you enjoy the video, obviously subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. I do reply to everybody, and here we go. To begin the DLC, I had to travel to the Mohgwyn Dynasty Mausoleum, where we previously met Mohg, the Lord of Blood. I thought this part was kind of cool because Mohg was actually the last boss that I fought in the game. So really the way it worked out for me, I kind of just continued my playthrough where Leda appeared and informed us of Miquella, the first time we hear about Miquella, even prior to getting into the DLC. Tells us that all we have to do is touch the withered arm and we'll be transformed or transferred to the realm of Shadow. Upon arrival to the realm of Shadow, right off the bat, the Gravesite Plain area, very cinematic, breathtaking, beautiful world. Kind of similar to Limgrave in the main game when you first spawn out of the tutorial. And for me personally, anytime I get into a new region of a map, here in the DLC with the Gravesite Plain, I always try and see where different roads are leading to, whether it's a cave or a underground tunnel. Always trying to get some weapons, armaments, chests before I progress too far into the map where I wouldn't want to turn back, if that makes any sense. And I suppose shame on me for not thinking much of it, this DLC being difficult. Obviously after completing the full game, 100 hours, I was probably level like 155, give or take. And then I ran into the Knight of the Solitary Gowl. I'm not going to pretend like I'm extremely good at this game. You see me running around with my Blasphemous Blade. If I was allowed to use summons in this fight, I would have my trusty Mimic Tear with me. So maybe that's why I struggled with this fight, because you're not allowed to use summons in this underground tomb. But man, this guy hits hard. And he snuck up on me. I did not expect him to give me as much trouble as he did, which maybe explains why I decided to run into the underground tomb with 79,000 runes on me, just starting off this DLC. But I died to this guy, and then I died, and then I died again, and then I died, and died, and died. So, the Knight of Solitary Gowl, I truly hope you do not spend all 79,000 of those runes in one place, because I will not be coming back for them. And after that little adventure, definitely time for me to get some runes back, so I headed a little bit further down the path in the Gravesite Plain area, came across this large, fiery, tanky enemy that is actually a really cool design, definitely exclusive to the DLC. And it reminds me of some of the bigger enemies in the base game. Like the one that came to mind was the dude who guards the castle outside of Stormvale Castle, the gate area. And they're big, they're slow, they don't do much. You just have to stand there, whack their legs for a bit. They will arm swipe you, they'll stomp the ground, pretty easy to dodge. So nothing too crazy here, pretty easy way to get a couple thousand stubs. But in all seriousness, what I actually like so far about this DLC is that it seems like we're getting into the story lore of it pretty quickly, where compared to the base game, it seems like you enter Limgrave and you're kind of just placed in a little fishbowl to do your exploring, which I think is cool, especially for me since I've never played a Souls game before. But you figure roughly 90% of the players who actually play Elden Ring don't know the lore because you actually have to read the items. And I could be far off when I say that, but it seems like this DLC is actually doing a good job of not necessarily putting it in your face, but explaining to you what's going on. And what that is you pick up a cross map that has 5 or 6 crosses on it, and what these crosses actually are described as Mikola's footsteps or footprints that he's left behind. Really, when you look at the map, you have two different options. You can go kind of up to the northeast, or you can shoot back over the bridge and head over to the northwest. I actually went up to the northeast first, which was the Castle Ensis area. But if you're anything like me, I'm sure you would understand that I had to handle the Fog Rift Catacombs before we got to Castle Ensis. Honestly, one of my favorite parts of Elden Ring, seeing all these underground tombs, all the detail that goes into it, it's a lot of fun. Right off the bat, you get these weird jumpy dudes, kind of terrifying, honestly, in here compared to a lot of the underground tombs. A large part because of this Indiana Jones style booby trap that crashes down from the ceiling. Probably spent a good 20-30 minutes in here, and honestly not great loot in this underground tomb, but like I said already, a cool design and a lot of fun to kind of explore. You get to the top part of the tomb and you face this huge black knight. He sucks, he killed me, took another 90,000 runes from me. But I guess in the end it's worth it. I got his spirit summon, so I might actually upgrade this and use it just because he smacked me around for a good bit. Rest assured, we finally make it to Castle Ensis, and as you can see here, we head up the hill to the Site of Grace. This is one of the crosses that I was talking about earlier that are on the map that are apparently Mikola's footsteps. So you click on them. There is some almost like a poem or a riddle. I'm not too sure what those are all about at this point. And there was actually a note left for us here at the Castle Cross. It looks like it was from Leda, the character who actually let us into the DLC area. But it reads that anyone else looking for Mikola should know that Mikola is trying to reach the Tower Sealed by Shadow, which we're actually going to find out what that means shortly later on in this video. And when you finally get into Castle Ensis, you are definitely in for a treat. I went into a little bit of detail on how I enjoy the underground tombs or the secret tunnels, caves in this game, but I think castles take the cake by a long shot. Just the idea of roaming the castle, all the different rooms and the corners and discovering all these loot items, it's definitely a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of Stormvale Castle, pretty early on in the Limgrave area. I honestly think Castle Ensis is much more enjoyable, for me at least. You're always in for a good surprise when you're in castles in Elden Ring. Thought it was a good idea to come sneak attack this guy? Nope, that didn't even take a quarter of his health. And right away, once I get whacked for more than 50% of my health, all I can think about is the Knight Gowl dude that I struggled with earlier and stole 80,000 runes from me. So now I'm fighting for my life, trying to maintain some dignity here against mini bosses, I guess. But the difference between this guy and the dude at the beginning of the DLC is that we actually take care of business here and take down the Knight. I'm not sure if he's more difficult, if he's harder, if I'm more patient, but I was pretty proud to actually take this one down. I really didn't even notice it while I was playing this game in real time, but this little attack right here with the blue swords, he has 3 of them, he flings them at me, was only a sneak peek of what was to come as I progressed through the castle. And that sneak peek was Rellana, the Twin Moon Knight. Really the first speed bump that I've run into here in my playthrough. And I didn't really expect Rellana to give me a lot of difficulties during my first couple attempts, as I was able to get her down to about 25 or 30% health pretty consistently. But similar to Melania towards the end of the base game, this boss fight is very quick and has a lot of range with a wide variety of movesets. The first one that kept giving me a bunch of difficulty was this Twin Moon Super Slam, I guess. I don't even know how to avoid it. I guess you would have to jump before the first moon hits the ground. But it seems like once you get hit for the first time, you're going to take damage for the rest of the attack. And thankfully that attack only seemed to come in the second phase, after at least half of the health bar had already been depleted. But another one that Rellana has, I mentioned that she has a pretty wide range, is going to be this mega extended sword, which isn't too difficult to dodge. One of them comes down overhead, and then the other part of the attack swipes across the arena. Takes up almost the entire arena, but if you dodge through it, you should be just fine. And then the last two kind of signature moves that Rellana has are projectile attacks. I mentioned the blue swords, just like the knight prior to this boss arena. These aren't too hard to dodge at all. You can kind of just run away from them half the time. But then this like sword projectile thing, like the Elden Beast has, where Rellana will throw like 3 or 4 sword waves at you. These ones are kind of tricky where even if you dodge the first one on time, I could be wrong, but it still seems like you're either early or late for the next one. So this one definitely got me a couple of times. But as always, we end up taking this one down. We actually get a new remembrance, and upon exiting the castle, we get a new cross map with updated crosses. And after exiting the castle on my way to that western part of the map where the other crosses were available, I went and spoke with Moore, and luckily I did because he gave me this black syrup that he wanted me to take to another merchant, Talier, who was across the map that I discovered prior to entering the castle initially. If you've played Elden Ring at this point, you know that a lot of the NPC dialogues, you kind of have to exhaust them 3 different times. So that's exactly what I did with both Moore and when you finally get to Talier. And Talier actually gives us a elixir, and I'm not quite sure what it does at this point. It seems pretty important. He mentioned something about putting a dragon to sleep instantly, so hopefully we're able to utilize this as it looks pretty powerful. And we finally make our way over to the western part of the Gravesite Plain area that I was talking about earlier. You see a massive staircase right off the bat like this approaching a area on the map. You know it's going to be a good one. Honestly, when I'm in there, I found this place to be pretty maze-like and difficult to navigate, which honestly probably just a skill issue, but it comes to be known as Belurat, I think it's called, the Tower Settlement. A pretty cool area, but like I said, overall for me, just a little bit difficult to navigate. And after taking some time in here, it seems like maybe I should have headed this way before heading up to Castle Ensis, but that's kind of the beauty of Elden Ring, where ultimately, in the end, it doesn't matter what you do first, because obviously, massive open world game, you're going to get to the same end spot, you're going to get to the same part of the story at some point. As you continue to climb the Tower Settlement, plenty of common enemies to get runes. I mean, half these guys don't even fight back. A lot of mini bosses. You see one of the invaders here, which I really never even understood during the base game, these NPC invaders. I'm not sure if they're supposed to simulate like an actual multiplayer online player invading your world. Some of them are tough. The one in K that actually gave me a tough time back in the base game. But as you continue to climb, like I said, you face a bunch of mini bosses like this guy, and then you got this huge like Malekith wannabe type enemy that has an absolutely massive sword. I tried getting him a bunch before he even saw me, but he couldn't help himself from noticing the fact that I had almost 200,000 runes on me. Like I said, plenty of chances to get some coin in this part of the map, but this guy, like I said, just couldn't help himself. Just past that enemy, we reach a couple more sets of stairs where we ultimately end up at the final site of grace here in the Tower Settlement that is in front of the boss fight for this area, which in my opinion, it would have been a little bit cooler to fight Rellana before this enemy, but like I said, not too big of a deal either way. This time the boss is going to be a dancing lion. He's cool. I beat him on my first try. He has a lot of defensive moves. He stays pretty far away from you. He's in the air, so kind of hard to get some hits on him half the time. He likes to make it rain lightning, and he dances around the boss arena. I guess that's his whole gimmick, and he does a pretty good job living up to it. Obviously, this is one of the main bosses in the area and the DLC, as upon defeating him, we do get that remembrance just like we did from facing Rellana, but really not too much to talk about here. Just one of the more quirky bosses that I think I've seen in Elden Ring so far. Defeating the Dancing Lion leads us to one of the areas in this game that was actually alluded to earlier in that letter from Leda, where we find out, or hope to find out, some more information on Mikola, the tower that is sealed by shadow. So, after a long journey up these stairs, obviously I find out that this is the case. The tower is actually locked. I can't access it at this time. So, I'm assuming this might be the endgame area for the DLC, and throughout the rest of my playthrough, we're going to be working towards finding the flame that was mentioned in that letter to opening up this seal, which obviously you play the base game. When you're in the capital, you're trying to get into the Erdtree, where you need to set the whole world on fire. This kind of seems like the same thing. But that's going to wrap up part 1 of my playthrough here for the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. This is actually at the point of this recording as far as I've made it into the game. So I'm going to take some time, obviously continue to play the DLC and get ready to finish up this series here of my playthrough. So if you enjoyed it and you're interested to see how the rest of it shapes up, of course subscribe to the channel. But thanks for watching as always, and we'll see you next time.